Hello and welcome to Starting Value on your Chuck Close drawing. My name is Eric, and today we're going to be taking our contour sketches and pushing the value structure in a couple ways that I recommend, kind of no matter what your source material is, good ways to start with value. We have a couple things here. I have my source material that I've been using. I also have actually a secondary source here. This is my iPad here. I can zoom in and actually look at detail. It's not necessarily necessary for this project. But if you have issues seeing things because of the print quality, it can be very helpful. I also have my drawing pencils here. I've been actually using my mechanical pencil for most of the sketching and the drafting in this. I think it has a nice thin line, but for adding value, I will absolutely be using my drawing pencils. I also have a blending stump and a chamois, sort of just a little microfiber cloth that's good for softening my mark making. I am going to show you just a quick way of sharpening my pencil. One way that's very easy, obviously, would be with a pencil sharpener. Another way that I like to do it is with a knife. This is just a thing to catch all the paper here, or the wood here. Protect my paper. I'm basically going to take my knife and I'm going to be pushing out towards the graphite. And as I do that, I will obviously expose more of that graphite. And what this does is sometimes a pencil sharpener takes too much off the top, where this way, if you sort of carefully come at it, you don't really waste as much of the graphite, which is a good thing. You can get actually a larger marking tool here. Oops. Mistake there, but only took off a little bit. And it's a little bit of a jagged edge at the beginning, but it does work quite well to get that material out. I did lose a little bit, but overall not too bad. Also, obviously the pencil sharpener will work. Okay, so we're going to be coming in and we're going to be darkening up some values here. I'm going to be starting, and I think the easiest way to start in a value structure is I'm going to be using my darkest value, my 9B. And I'm going to be building from the darkest value first. The reason I do this is if you start with the lightest values, it's very easy to continue to build up value, and then when you get to that darkest value, say, oh, I guess it just doesn't go as dark, being a comparative element, going from light to dark. But if you define your darkest value first, then you know what that dark value is, and your drawing will have more contrast, which is a good thing. So I'm going to be looking for some of the darker values here. The inside of the brim of his hat, I think, is a really nice area. Pretty forgiving area, kind of a flat space, and a good way to show how to flatten our mark making. So here I have my 9B, and I'm going to start making some marks. And I sort of perceive it as just about the same value all the way through. There might be some minor iteration. So the hair, I think, actually does protrude a little bit over this. So maybe we'll save a little bit of space here, but we'll build up most of this space as far as starting a dark value. So I'm not coming in and pushing as hard as I can. I think that's a very common thing that people will do. You can very easily sort of push too hard and mess up the grain of the page. I'm also trying to use multiple different angles, and I will eventually come in and darken this to push the line quality. But I'm not trying to do it in one direction too much. That sort of creates what I call linear distractions, which hopefully with our blending stump and chamois we'll be able to reduce. With my chamois, I think it's a really good tool for a larger area. I'm going to come in, I'm going to start working. You'll notice right off the bat, it actually will start making some of the value a little bit lighter. But after the first pass, it will definitely start helping. So already, trying to get a cleaner space. Brim here kind of comes to a halt, and then there's another sort of section at the front, the lip of it. So we're just going to try and develop this space here. Once I get that first pass, and I've reduced my speckling significantly. Speckling is when you see the tooth of the page coming through. I'm going to start pushing a little bit harder, getting a little bit more pressure in my pencil. Coming from different directions, adding pressure. One thing I also like to do is take a piece of paper, sort of mask my hand when I'm working in an area. Helps reduce the chance of palm smears. And this was a little bit lucky, a little bit planned, but I usually, as a right-handed artist, try and start somewhere in the top left. That also helps reduce the chance of palm smears. So we're gonna get this little section. Another really good thing about this tool here is that you can transfer medium a long way across. So definitely this is gonna be significantly darker as far as the underside of his hat here. But I can start getting a little bit of value everywhere. Go all the way up to here. Do the same thing here. One thing you do not want to happen is what's happening a little bit here, is where you can see my erased lines where I had the grid. I did come and erase the majority of my lines before I added any value on this. Remember, to get rid of those lines is important, as if you do not, they will confuse the space and actually kind of confuse your value shift. So there's a little bit of that happening here, sort of a negative grid. But I will work that out the further I go into this. So this is maybe, if you're thinking of 10 as being the darkest value, maybe at like a 7 right now. So I'm going to really come in on my third pass here. Circular motion. And once I get it built up a couple layers, sometimes I'll come in, I'll try and work a smaller area and basically finish it out. So it's getting pretty close. I'm going to be using a blending stump now to push the last little bit. And this is a fresh blending stump, but pretty quickly it will be saturated with medium here, graphite, and it will be used as a good tool to help blend the space of value. So I'd say that 2 square inches right there is getting pretty close to a 10 out of 10, my deepest value that I'm going to want all the way across my hat. Using a blending stump, using a chamois, and trying to soften my way across the space. So as I build this up, I will probably start mostly in the hat. I will get that developed pretty well, maybe not completely finished, but I sort of call it to the 90%. Sometimes pushing something to the 100% right away can make you rush things and make bad decisions. I kind of like to just get things closer every time I go past them, and eventually they sort of come together. The other thing is that a lot of people are going to want to jump into facial features and the most dramatic things first. I encourage you to resist that urge, to work on areas that are a little bit more forgiving, like a hat, a piece of clothing, a shadow. Define that deep value first, and then build into more intricate spaces. Okay, as you see, or as you will see in my time-lapse video that I'm about to start, I'm going to sort of be knocking the hat out, maybe the clothing next, and then working into the face. The background's pretty similar too, or simple too. It's basically just a sloping kind of hill there. So I think it's going to be pretty easy for me to fill that out when the time comes. Definitely a lot of chamois work. I can come in and just soften space pretty quickly with this tool. Okay, here we go. Let's knock out some value. Okay, so my first pass on graphite as far as value is done. I got some things fairly close, like the hat. I still think I need to get a little bit darker, but overall I got pretty close on it. The clothing I've sort of marked out, and the face I took a second pass on. The face obviously needs a lot more deep values, but for a first pass, for working about an hour, I pushed my space as much as I could. As I continue to push space, I'm going to continue to use my source material. Actually, I'm using 2 source materials, which can help. If you're running into issues of gridding, messing up as far as lines, messing your value, continue to work that space and it will diminish. There's still a couple spaces in here, but I'm not too worried about it. Also, minor things, like if your person has facial hair or makeup or something like that, usually I like to do larger areas of value and then I'll build facial hair or whatever it is on top. So he looks a little bit weird right now without facial hair, but once you start adding that, it's going to feel more natural. There's other areas of sort of more immaculate detail, like in the shirt, with really nice clean lines going through there. I decided to wait on that and trying to get some of the larger structures in first, but it's coming along fairly nicely. I think if I put a couple more hours into it, it's going to turn into a fairly successful drawing through and through as far as a value drawing in our Chuck Close method.